All right, welcome. Welcome to episode 2 of the Table Ministry podcast. We're having conversation about the challenges of physical and mental needs in our church. This is TJ and I'm James. What are we talking about today, TJ?
So today we are talking about not the choice of shirt you had. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, well, you said you're a Cubs fan
it.
last episode, so I had to bring out my socks. South side right here.
Yeah, we can keep going. But I think as we were talking about kind of the reasons why in the first one, I think, and we talked about it a little bit. And this one, episode 2 and episode 3, we're going to talk specifically about parents engaging the family, because that was one of the things. After I got this kind of try to align my mindset and my heart to God's. Then it was like, okay, practically, what do I do next? And I think the parents was one of the ones that it's honestly one of the most terrifying.
And like youth ministry, is it a lot easier to engage the kids than it is the parents?
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, even for me, like I shared a little bit last week, my wife and I, we don't have kids. And so it's always been a fearful thing of mine. When you look at the eyes of a parent, you're sitting there thinking, going, are they looking at me going, you don't know? And I don't. And right. I felt it's insecure of mine. It's an insecurity of mine to go, I don't have a kid living in my household. I have a golden doodle and 2 cats, which are very different from children.
They are.
And so, yeah, it's way easier just to engage the kids than it is necessarily the family. But I think when we engage the family, we see more and more of God's design for the family. That the family really is this place where for them to become the moms and dads, the grandparents, grandma and grandpa, the spiritual heroes in their kids' lives, because God had that design for them all the way back in the very, very beginning. And it's so easy for us as church leaders in the church to operate not in that mindset, because it's so much harder. Because when you talk about family, you're talking about mess.
Right.
I mean, your family's probably messy. My family's messy.
Definitely. And the more in your family, the more messier it gets. I have 5 siblings, so.
Yeah. So when we talk about kids with special needs, or students or children with physical or mental disabilities or food allergies or behavioral, whatever that is, when you start engaging the family, oh man, like I shared a little bit last week, it would ignite my insecurities and my fears. And because it's so much easier not to engage them. And I think there is a plethora of different reasons why, but we're missing out on something so much greater. And I think one of the top reasons I think of why it's easier not to engage the family is it's easier in the beginning. I'm assuming within your area, I mean, with that work, I mean, at what level, what does the engagement of families look like for you?
So with ABA therapy, I'm on the day-to-day level with the kid. I actually don't do a whole lot of interaction with the parents because the PC, the program coordinator, does a lot of the interaction with the parents, okay. And they actually write the therapy program. However, on the daily basis, we always check in with the parents, ask questions and concerns. So there's that basic level. But on this level, it is also new for me as well as how do you respect parents and how do you honor their wishes and understand them in a whole different context, especially with ministry.
Yeah. So. Yeah, because I think our challenge is we see kids 1 day, 2 days a week. I mean, we don't see
How many hours were you saying you get a year with a kid?
Yeah, we get collectively, if a kid, say our programming meets maybe, say, 40 times a year. Like our middle school ministry meets on a Sunday morning. We'll get maybe 80 hours a year.
Which isn't very much at all.
No, and that's if the kid comes every week.
Yeah.
So the kids, if the spotty attendance or something, and so we don't get a whole lot of time with them. But I think in the beginning with these parents, it's so much easier to not engage them because you don't have to worry about meetings. You don't have to worry about conversations. You don't have to worry about confrontation. You don't have to worry about, hey, help me understand. It's so much easier in the beginning because you don't have to do those things if you don't engage the parents. But you miss out on so much. I think one of the other reasons why I know, at least for myself, and again, I'm just speaking for myself. Mm-hmm. By no means am I a professional on parents. No means am I a professional on children or students with special needs. All I can do is speak from my experience of what I've had. And I think one of the other reasons why it's easier not to engage the parents is that it's to avoid all of these fears of inadequateness.
Which we talked about a lot in episode 1.
Yeah, and you don't have to go, wow, I feel inadequate and clueless. Those are not great feelings. feelings. Like,
No, not at all.
no, and so it's easier to avoid, to not engage them because these parents know their child. They are the ones, I think, that know their kid the best.
Definitely.
And so if I feel unskilled or inadequate, going to somebody that really is one of the professionals and knowing that specific kid, how they tick, the way that they think, all their different uniqueness. If I come in and if I don't know them, I'm maybe feeling like the parents are maybe going to discover that I don't know them. They're going to go, if they discover that, then I just have this big fear of inadequateness. And that's one of the biggest reasons why it's so much easier not to engage the parents is I can now avoid that feeling of inadequateness. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense. On that note as well, like, is there a lot of barriers with parents that you see instead of solutions? Or is it like, what are some of the barriers you see?
I think I spoke to one of them was if you have kids or if you don't, every kid's also unique. I think one of the other barriers was that it's so much easier to instead of understanding understanding the kid's history, whether the child has special needs or not. I think understanding any kid's history, it takes a lot of work. And because it's so much easier not to engage the parents because it's so much easier to just address and to fix the behavior.
Definitely.
You see a kid being squirrely, address the squirreliness. You see a kid talking or being distracted, you would address that. But I think one of the things I've learned with the reasons why specifically to engage the families, and even whether this is anywhere, is it's then allows me to understand the history, but it's so much easier not to because that requires a whole lot of work.
Something we were talking about earlier is that parents are protectors of their children.
Yeah.
And so this can create like an uneasy feeling at times because if they're overprotective, which actually overprotective is kind of a word that I don't really like to use because I think God designed parents to be protectors.
That's awesome.
But at the same time, it can definitely feel like overprotection from a youth ministry standpoint, correct?
Yeah, they come and the tact may not be there. And maybe it's a lot in the protection. It's in the moment. It's like, hey, bam. And it's like, well, I'm not ready to receive that. And it is trying to come and go, wait a minute, they are coming from this mindset of protector. So yeah, that's huge.
What is the number one reason that what's the most positive thing that you have seen when you have interacted with a parent with special needs?
I think all of my preconceived thoughts of how they're going to react in their response just completely get just shattered. There was specifically, I remember there's one time we were trying to find a new bus company for our summer camp. And as I was going around and I was literally at the place looking at the company, looking at the bus, and then one of the guys asked me, the workers, they said, hey, do you need a bus with a wheelchair lift? And I was like,
it didn't even cross your mind at that point, did it?
No, I'm like, well, you have those? Like, why? But then immediately, it was this thought of one of the boys that was in our ministry. He was bound to a wheelchair. And God being able to open up my mind and my dreaming and my thoughts to go, what would it look like for him to go to camp? And seeing, I was like, oh man, I immediately started to think and make up stories of how his parents would be like, no, that's the protector,
So was it,
or all these different things.
So it was probably really you were really nervous going into the parents and being like, well, I have this idea. What do you think?
Yeah, am I going to offend you?
Yeah.
Or are you going to look at me and go, no, I don't want my kid to go. But they, fast forward, the boy goes to camp, uses the lift, and that is probably of the last 12 years, no offense to any students or any other churches, that was probably one of my most favorite summer camps because of seeing the impact of just the simplicity of being able to start the process of going, hey, we could get him there. Would that help? Honestly, I think the family had never really thought about what would that look like for him to go?
And I think sometimes we see the barriers instead of the solutions. And in this case, the solution came out of nowhere. I mean, the bus company itself said, well, what do you need? And that got you, that idea triggered in your mind of, wow, we could potentially use this. So I think there's a lot of solutions, even with discussing with parents, that we need to look at. And sometimes they come out of nowhere. Other times we got to think a little bit more. structurally about what that looks like.
Yeah,
But
because I think like what you were talking about, that protector, it comes across, and however it comes across, may intimidate us. And we look at that going, oh man, it may be a reason why to avoid and why it may be easier not to engage them, which sometimes it is. Like if they come across like, oh man, it kind of scares you a little bit. But I think like, how would you see that protector mentality or that protective reality for parents? How would you see that being a reason why to engage them? Why would you see that?
I mean, I think definitely like if they're protecting their student, or sorry, if they're protecting our student, which is their child, then they're definitely there's a reason behind it. So they've had to fight a lot for their student or their child. I'm getting my verbs mixed up. Anyways, so they're having to fight for their child everywhere they go. So, the school system, they're having to fight the school system on field trips. I talked to one mother who they literally said they couldn't go on field trips. And she's like, no, you guys have to take her on a field trip. But as to engage them, I mean, they're out there looking for solutions for their students.
Yep.
And if they're seeing that you want to help them find those solutions, they're going to become on your side real fast.
Yep.
And it's going to flip a switch.
Yep.
And it may not, at first, there may be that little confrontation.
Yep.
But once they see they're on your side, it's going to create a whole different atmosphere for both parties.
Yeah, because I think then the parent that is this protector mentality all of a sudden is now, I'm going to protect my kid and I'm going to protect the place where that they feel and they know that they belong. And they will go to any extreme to show that protector, is then you have one of the biggest advocates. I mean, you've got kind of this mama bear on your side that's like, you touch this place where my son and my daughter feels like they belong, I will rip you to shreds. And I will also go to any extremes to show that. And because that place means so much to them, to their family, and ultimately to their kid. So that's a huge way, I think.
It's like trading players on a team. You're now getting them on your team, and
it's like you see someone and be like, oh wow, they're really, really good. They're really and it's like, I wonder what would that look like if
instead of being on the opposing team, how can we bring them to my team?
Yep. How could they? They're so scary, but then when they're on your, exactly. Yep. Nice fitting with the jersey, the shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. I think one of the other reasons, kind of to flip this a little bit, not the reasons why it's easier not to engage, but why to engage them. I think as a church leader and as a pastor, I think you are loving the child and the student more like you are loving them more by engaging the family. I think what you're doing is you provide things that like consistency. It's going to maybe consistency in language, consistency in plans for that child that they're experiencing at home. I think you're also then too, you're just administering to the parents and to the family. Because I think families and parents, whether they have a child with special needs or disabilities or not, parents are constantly discouraged. And I think it's even more so with families and with parents that have a child with special needs, that they feel that maybe it's tired.
Well, there's not a whole lot of safe places for people with challenges.
Yeah.
And those safe places, like, haven't always been the church. I mean, sometimes I've talked to parents where it's more overwhelming to go to church on a Sunday morning than to think about, like, especially for instance, if their child is challenged with autism, they have to think about all the sensory. They have to think about how this is going to affect their child. And when we make our church safe for them, then now our church can be a safe place for them.
For them, for other kids. Yeah, that's perfectly well said, man. And I think one of the other reasons why to engage them is because when they have that safe place, I mean, that their long-term future, I mean, it's setting them up for success. If they
Definitely.
can, at a young age, as a child or as a student, find this place that's safe for them. Like, I mean, research continually shows, we hear in the youth ministry world so much about the power of a place where they can belong, this power of belonging. Then you really are setting this child up for future success by engaging the parents and leveraging them and supporting them, praying for them, talking with them, laughing with them, caring for them. You really are setting up the child and the family for huge future success. Again, this is one of the God's heart is for the parents to engage and to support and to disciple their children. I mean, we see that all the way back in Deuteronomy when he says, he's like, write it on the doorpost. Like, it wasn't supposed to be, the teachings of the law at that time were not supposed to be just taught and forgot. They were supposed to be written on doorposts, written on their foreheads and their hands. I mean, they were supposed to be written everywhere, all to show you have to continually talk and model this. And so I think the reasons why to engage the parents drastically outweigh the reasons why not to.
Definitely.
And again, that's one of the biggest starting points that I've seen and I've experienced. And I would encourage any church leader and any pastor, small group leader, to look for ways to engage your family, whether the child is a child with special needs or not, whether they have ADHD or not, whether they have food allergies or not, if they have whatever. There's no condition. Always looking, how can I engage the parents and to love and to support and encourage them. And so some kind of like just little action steps I would encourage any youth worker or anybody that's listening. One thing I would do is I would encourage you, identify who the parents are. Talk with the kids, even engage and identify who the parents are of any children. But if you know of some specific children or students with special needs, identify the parents and then begin to pray for them.
Definitely.
Pray for them, pray for their families, pray for their child, and then begin to look for ways also to show and to tell them that you are for them, because I think that builds that relationship of this protector. You begin to go, hey, I know you protect your kid. I love that. I want you to know I'm for you. I'm not against you at all. I'm not on the opposite team here. I want your kid to succeed and to be loved and to have a place where they are included and belonged. As a parent, then being able to go, how can I better understand you and your family? Just begin having those conversations. So
definitely, and as we communicate with the parents, they'll notice it, and they'll notice your body language as you're communicating with them. I mean, this is something we didn't really discuss, but like texting a parent is so much different than a face-to-face with a parent. And I think those with especially challenges in their home really appreciate that face-to-face. So if we seek them out in the church and we're engaging them face-to-face, and just letting them know that we're on their side.
Yep, definitely. So that's it for this one. So in our next one, we've got some specific practical tips. Right? Yeah, we got some specific practical tips and things that you can just try and experiment with and engaging with parents. So again, we want to encourage you guys. Thank you again for watching. Thank you again for listening. We want you guys to know you are not alone by any means. We care for you guys. We want you guys to succeed, and ultimately we want more and more students and children to experience Jesus in a way that drastically changes them, and they develop this intimate, growing relationship with them. And so share.
Definitely share and comment if you have questions. We want to continue the conversation with you, so feel free to engage with questions. We love it. So
cool. We'll look forward to seeing you guys with episode 3 coming up. See ya.